Hey everyone, it's Kelly. I'm back today with a new 12 by 12 scrapbook process video. This video is for the Cut to You cut file shop, and I'm going to be using the Floral Bouquet set for my layout today. So that cut file does come with two different floral clusters, and I am just using the larger of the two for my layout today. I cut the cut file on white cardstock, and I'm going to back it with some pattern papers from the Pink Paisley Paige Evans Horizon collection. I wanted to try to create a little bit of dimension and shadowing with the flowers. I didn't want to just put them straight onto the cut file. So I grabbed some Distress Oxides and some Distress inks from my stash, and I'm just doing a little bit of ink blending on the background. Ink blending really isn't my thing. I really like how it looks, but I've never really mastered the technique of just getting it smooth. It usually looks a little bit blotchy, but for what I'm using it for here, it's not a big deal by any means because it's going to be covered up by the cut file and it ends up looking totally fine. So I'm going to do that with all of the flowers that I'm backing and the leaves. And I'm just showing you again here, I'm just taking that sponge dauber and just adding some color to the background, and then I'll just adhere the cut file right on top of that. And you can see the shadowing that that gives the flowers. It just adds a little punch of color and just kind of separates the color too. So it just gives it some varying degrees of that purple. I'm going to repeat that same thing with the yellow here, and I will link all of the colors in the description box below if you're interested in checking out the specific colors I used. You can also see them on the screen here. So this layout ends up having a pretty tropical feel to it. That wasn't really my intention going into the layout, but I really like the colors. I think it's a lot of fun. This would definitely be a great color scheme to use for traveling photos, especially if you were somewhere warm and tropical. Now for this next set of leaves, I do not add any of the ink to this pattern paper. The leaves were so small in this part that I would have had to pretty much blend out the entire pattern. So I decided just to go directly onto the pattern paper for that set of leaves. Now for the stem for one of the roses, I do add some, I think it's the Twisted Citron to that just to deepen it. And it does block out a lot of the pattern, but I'm okay with that because it's just the stem of that rose. I really like how this darker green pattern paper turned out. That green Distress Oxide ink, it really adds a big pop of color to those leaves. And I'm really pleased with how those turned out. And then this is the last of the pattern papers that I will use to back the cut file. I am using that Twisted Citron again just to add a punch of color to that pattern paper. And here you can see it close up and all put together. You can really see the color gradient on there, and it just really made it come to life. It added some dimension and just added a lot of visual interest, and I'm so happy that I decided to do that. So I'm going to use this striped pattern paper, and this is not from the Horizon collection. It was just a pattern paper I had in my stash. I believe it's from My Mind's Eye, and I just tore a big section out of it, and I'm going to use it as a layering piece behind my photo and behind the cut file. And I wanted to add in another pop of color, and I've sped this part up quite a bit because it's just blending again on the background. And I'm going to use a couple different Distress Oxides to add some color there. And again, super blotchy. I'm starting out underneath the black and white pattern paper because I know that I'll be able to smooth it out as I work my way up. I know there are lots of tips and tricks on how to make ink blending smooth, but I really do think it's something that you just have to practice with. My applicators were brand new. I know that makes a big difference when you're doing ink blending, whether or not your applicator is well loved or if it's brand new. And again, for what I'm using it for, I think it ends up fine. I'm covering a lot of it up with that cut file. Now this layout was actually partly inspired by the mood board that Cut to You has available this month. They are celebrating their second anniversary, and I will have a code in the description box below for 20% off to the Cut to You shop. It is good through the end of July 2020, so you'll still have a few days left to take advantage of that by the time this video goes up. I've also added the mood board at the end of the video so that way you can take a look at it and see where I pulled my inspiration from. Now I'm just going through some of the die cuts and just different ephemera pieces and some stickers and things like that from the Horizon collection. Just trying to figure out where I want to place things and how I want to embellish. Sometimes when I use a large cut file like this, I have a hard time embellishing because it does take up such a large portion of the layout that there's not a whole lot of area left to embellish, but I definitely want to add in some extra pops of color here and there. The title was a struggle for me as well, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes here. Now on the mood board, there are these wet flowers. They have like dewdrops on them. And I thought it would be fun to sprinkle some water onto the distress oxides and let that speckle effect come in. And it just reminded me of the dewdrops on the flowers. So that was why I added in those water droplets. So now I'm just adding some tissue paper behind the photo. That'll just give the photo a little bit of separation from the background. And this photo was taken on 4th of July a few years ago at my parents' house. And like I said, this layout has a pretty tropical feel to it. And I live in northeastern Indiana, so there is not a whole lot of tropical happening in the area that I live. But I guess another way to look at these colors is they're just bright and summery and just fun. So it works for the layout. But again, I definitely think this would be perfect for a vacation theme, which is what the Horizon collection is geared towards travel. But I liked the colors, and I think it just adds a lot of fun to the background and to the layout. So now I'm just starting to adhere things down. I'm liking the placement of the embellishments. I'm tucking in a few more floral die cuts around that large floral cut file. It just brings in some pops of pink. There's a lot of pink on the mood board, so that was why I chose the pink to use on the background with the distress oxides. And then I am coming in with some more pink flowers just to bring in more of that pink. I'm going to add a few more leaves to the background as well, just figuring out where I want to tuck things in and just trying to get the placement right on all of these embellishments before I adhere them down. All right, so here comes the title struggle. I'm trying to use some of these puffy vinyl words, just trying to figure out where I can place them. I wasn't really liking the placement everywhere I was trying to stick them down. When I had the happiness on the left-hand side of the layout, it just felt really out of place. Now where I have the happiness, it feels like there's just that huge gap between the photo and the title, but when I move it up on that striped pattern paper, you can't read it. I thought about maybe trying to add a few different words around the layout just to help create a visual triangle, but I didn't really like how those looked either. So I end up deciding that I'm just going to go with that really small phrase sticker that I think it says "you and me always." So that's what I decided to go with my title. It's super small, but who says a title has to be large? So I'm going to go with that for the title. I added it in the date stamp. Now I've decided that I need to add in just another pop of yellow, and I'm going to hold the layout close up to the camera so you can see it in a little bit more detail. And I did add some enamel dots. I also added those puffy vinyl heart stickers, just scattered a few of those around the layout again. And here is that mood board. So you can see that there's a lot of pink. There's some black and white stripes in those pillows. That's where I decided to grab that black and white stripe pattern paper. And I think my first layout that I made went with the mood board a lot better. That's why I decided to use that for the mood board challenge. But I just wanted you to see that I also was inspired by the mood board to create this layout. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about the cut files or techniques or any of the products, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll be back again soon.